After turbocharging my Sportster, it only took a couple thousand miles of daily riding it on 8 pounds of boost for me to get bored with the power. So I decided that I wanted to come up with a mechanical methanol injection kit that would allow me to crank up the boost. For those of you that watched the full build video, you'll remember that I drilled and tapped the carb and added a power jet. This power jet is adjustable by the knob on the outside. If you want to add more fuel at wide open throttle, just turn the knob counterclockwise and you're done. No need to get your hands dirty. This allows me to run a smaller main jet, which further improves fuel atomization and makes the bike run better at part throttle as a result. I had an epiphany when editing the section of the build video where I was installing the power jet. The power jet pulls fuel from the float bowl, so whatever gas you're running in the bike is what the jet supplies. Why don't I just add a second thunder jet that gets its fuel feed from a separate reservoir filled with a 50-50 mixture of water and methanol? The whole thing would be completely mechanical, and I can make the whole setup with things I have laying around. The question is, will it work? To begin, I pulled off the carb. I went ahead and grabbed a 1/2-inch transfer punch, which is the same diameter as the power jet. If the transfer punch can fit, then so will the power jet. After drilling and tapping the hole, I gave the carb a quick bath in the ultrasonic. While waiting on the carb to clean, I went ahead and started working on my reservoir. I decided to be super lazy and just use a random water bottle that I normally carry drinking water in when I ride. I drilled and tapped a hole and then attached the feed line for the jet. In keeping with the super lazy theme, I cut a small piece of hose and attached it to the frame, and then used hose clamp to fix the water bottle to the frame. We're getting close. The carb is done. Now all that's left to do is install the jet and plumb the feed line. Here you can see that I cut the jet shorter so it comes on at a later throttle position. The jet on the left is for adding fuel. The jet on the right is our methanol injection nozzle. For the water/methanol mixture, I just mixed 12 ounces of heat, which is 100% methanol, with slightly less than 12 ounces of water. This will get the ratio close enough to 50-50. All that's left to do now is pour in the mixture and take the old girl out for a test and tune.
So I'm going to go head onto an on-ramp for the freeway, and we'll just take it up to the speed limit really quick and just get a feel for where the AFRs are. And if they're in the high 11s, which I think they're going to be, we'll go ahead and open up the methanol injection after turn and see how it goes. Okay, AFRs were 11.0, which is too rich. So I'm going to close up our handy dandy Thunderjet. 11.2, too rich. Okay, we're back about up to 11.8 or so. We'll start opening up the other side. So I'm thinking I'm going to open it up about a half turn. It's just got this little line on it. Boom. That's one full turn open. Okay, it didn't go super rich, so I'm going to open it up another half. We're at 1.5 open. I opened it another 3/4, so we're at like 2 1/4. It's just so hot out, guys, that I don't really want to do any more testing today. Alright guys, I'll see you tomorrow morning. Open it up another half. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now, guys, is we went from 11.8, 11.9 to about 11.2, which is right about where I want it. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to start backing off on the fuel that I'm adding. The AFR was 12.1 right there. I feel pretty comfortable with that. Probably a touch on the lean side, but again, we're injecting the water meth now, so you can get away with leaner and you can get away with more timing too. I don't want to get greedy with the timing, and I don't want to get greedy with the boost. The main reason I installed this water meth injection setup is just to make the bike safer and more reliable. And it's mechanical, so the only way that I'm going to have an issue with the setup is if I run out or something goes wrong with the line. So what I'm going to go ahead and do to kind of, finish this whole setup off is I'm gonna get some heat. I'm gonna get a big roll of heat shrink, and then I'm gonna put heat shrink over most of it, and then I'll leave a little spot that's clear so I can, you know, double check that it's still working. Well, folks, I think we can consider this a success. It definitely works, and the AFRs, when I started to open up the Thunderjet, definitely came down. We went from 11.9 to 11.2, which means that, you know, the meth injection setup is definitely working. What I did notice yesterday, it didn't seem like it was working, is I noticed that there wasn't any fluid in the line. I thought, it should be pulling out. So what I went ahead and did is I hooked up I have a little mini vacuum pump, and I popped this line off and I attached the vacuum pump and then pulled it up, and then pulled a little vacuum through it, and then the fluid came in here, and now it's able to inject the methanol now. So I think what you need to do if you guys want to copy this setup is when you do this, just make sure you don't need a vacuum pump. You could just put the line lower than your reservoir, and that should, you know, it should pull the fuel in there.
The only additional change I made to this first setup was I changed the location of the check valve. If you have the check valve too close to the carb like I did, all of the methanol drains back into the tank while you're riding around out of boost. Putting the check valve near the beginning of the feed line took care of this issue.
Not only can I help you set this up over on Patreon, I have a how-to video over there of how to put a turbo in your carbed vintage bike. It's not specific to vintage bikes, but just any bike with a carburetor. If you want to know how to put a turbo on it, I got a complete breakdown of draw through, blow through, the pros and cons of both, how to set both of them up, how to prep your carb for boost, all that good stuff. So if you guys are interested at all in putting a turbo on your motorcycle, or you want water injection, or just general how-to, go ahead and check out my Patreon. Thank you everybody for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace!
Before we begin, I'd like to recommend checking out RB Racing's turbo calculator for your build to help you determine roughly how big of a turbo you need to achieve your power goal. Most compressor maps for turbochargers are rated in pounds a minute, and ideally you want to have a turbocharger size so that you're running right in the middle of the compressor map at your desired horsepower target. Here you can see me punch in the numbers I used for the Sportster build, and these rough calculations showed that I needed a turbo that flows roughly 13 pounds a minute at 11.5 psi of boost.